Ben Stansall AFP/Getty Images. Kazuo Ishiguro, recipient of the 2017 Nobel Prize for Literature, is the slyest kind of internationalist. Some forms of literary greatness assemble themselves out of specificity, reaching for the eternal by reproducing the experience of living in a particular place at a particular time. Nobelists like Seamus Heaney, Thomas Tranströmer, Toni Morrison, and Alice Munro write out of this impulse, producing the opposite of what the critic Tim Park deplores as the dull new global novel, the sort of book that travels smoothly across borders because everything in it can so readily be translated. But Ishiguro, and Parks counts him among the globalists, finds the very notion of a firm, localized identity treacherous. Born in Nagasaki but raised in Britain from the age of 5, he likes to joke about his youthful infatuation with Sherlock Holmes, how he took to imitating the elaborate Victorian manners of Conan Doyle's characters only to find people at the time just put this down to my being Japanese. He worried that his most famous novel, The Remains of the Day, would be viewed as a retread of the elegiac material of his first 2 books, in which the narrators look back on their lives with melancholy regret at having exercised too much restraint. Instead, because the earlier books were set in Japan and Remains of the Day concern the recollections of an English butler, his 3rd novel was regarded as a radical departure. Is it any wonder then, that in Ishiguro's fiction, what we think of as the foundations of identity are more often than not a facade with which we deceive ourselves? When Ishiguro began his first novel, A Pale View of Hills, he'd planned to make it about a young underclass Cornish mother, the sort of person he met while working a social service job with the homeless in West London. He also did a pre-collegiate stint as a grouse feeder for the Queen Mother at Balmoral Estate in Scotland. The writing only took wing when he reconceived his narrator as someone less familiar to him, a Japanese housewife. In the writing, he told the Paris Review, "I discovered that my imagination came alive when I moved away from the immediate world around me." He abandoned the shop-worn writing program mandate to write what you know. Since then, Ishiguro has roamed the novel's attics and cellars, borrowing furniture from various genres: detective fiction with When We Were Orphans, science fiction with Never Let Me Go, and the chivalric romance and its present-day descendant, fantasy, with 2015's The Buried Giant. These are forms of narrative that promise to take us away from the mundane doings that preoccupy realistic fiction. Ishiguro partakes of these genres, yet he never fully enters into them. Instead, he bends them to new purposes. He has a knack for cracking a story open to expose the grief, confusion, and yearning that make people want to tell it. Ishiguro's